Hello, I'm Sayakat Cosplay, and welcome to another video. Today is part 2 of the Golden Eagle Armor helmet build. Again, this is the Golden Eagle Armor from Wonder Woman 1984, the upcoming movie. And today I'm going to be showing you how I put this thing together. So in the last video, I showed you how I patterned this helmet, and today I'm going to be showing you how I put it all together. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and hit that subscribe button and bell notification for the next time I put up a new video. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to part 2 of the Golden Eagle Armor helmet build. Like I said before, in this video I'm going to be showing you how I put the helmet together. So in the last video, I already made the base for the helmet, and I made the pattern for the helmet. In this video, I'm going to show you how that all gets put together, my fail, and then remaking some of the parts and some of the pattern and putting it together again. Part of this process is knowing if I've messed up and redoing it if I need to. Everybody does this. This is pretty common, and I'm actually glad to include my fails in my videos because it shows people that even if you have a lot of experience, you can still mess up and still fail. So to start putting this together, I need to trace all my pattern pieces onto 4mm foam. I'm using 4mm foam because it's a little bit more structurally stable than 2mm, and I don't want this layering to be very bulky. If I was using 6mm, it might be too bulky and the helmet proportions will probably start to look off, so I've decided to use 4mm. You probably could use 2mm to make things a little less bulky, but that foam easily rips and isn't as stable and nice, so I'm not using 2mm. There are a lot of pieces to trace and cut out, so I'm just going to go ahead and prepare to fast forward through all of that part. While we are in fast forward mode, aside from having a lot of pieces, the helmet doesn't really have a lot of details, but it does have some line details on the sides of the quote-unquote feather pieces. To make these line details, you will need a very sharp box cutter or X-Acto blade to lightly score the line into the foam. Once I've got all my pieces traced and cut out, I'm going to take a marker and mark that line, and then use that really sharp blade to score in over the line. Once you have scored in the line, you can open that line up with a heat gun to make a nice detail line in the foam. This is going to be a nice straight line that you can go back in and emphasize with paint later. Since this is 4mm foam, you have to be very careful not to score too deeply because the foam isn't that thick. So make sure that when you're making the line that you're not putting that much pressure on the blade and not cutting all the way through the foam. Scoring lines into foam can take a little bit of practice, so if you've never tried this technique before, I would recommend taking some scrap pieces of foam and trying it out before doing it on the final pieces. You can also create lines and details with a Dremel or a wood burner, but that's a topic for a different video, and I didn't do that on this project. For this, scoring in the lines with a blade was totally fine for these details. You'll see me do this detailing process a little bit later on in the video, but I figured now was a good time to just talk about it because the line scoring in parts aren't that long. Once everything has been traced onto the foam, it's time to cut everything out. One tip that I have for you when cutting out objects from foam is to cut inside the lines. You've traced around the pattern, so always make sure to cut inside the line. This cutting process is going to take some time, so for the sake of this video, I'm going to cut some of that out, and just know that I've cut out all of the pieces that I traced onto the foam. All of these pieces make up that quote-unquote eagle layer that I was talking about in the past video, the other video on patterning this thing. So aside from showing you where I'm going to be doing the detail lines, I'm going to cut the rest of this process out. Alright, here we have me actually doing the detail lines, and I'm just going to trace the line in marker and then go over that with the blade and open it up with the heat gun. So this is a fairly long making of process. If you're wondering how long it took me to make this whole helmet, it's about 10-12 hours total. It was about 2 hours of patterning and then 6 hours of building. That 6 hours of building is because I messed up and had to do it again. But that's how long this actually takes. So I have, 10 hours of footage to filter through while making these videos. You're welcome for not watching all of this. If you've made it this far into the video, congratulations. I know that these are longer videos because this is a long making of process, but now we're finally getting to the part where a lot of this is going to start coming together. So this is the part where everything starts to get glued together. I'm going to glue together these side feather pieces first, so I'm going to put the sides together and then start putting the top parts together. So the sides are going to be basically 2 pieces once they are all glued together, and then the top I'm going to make in the layers that it sort of was patterned in. Making the side pieces was actually probably one of the easiest parts of putting the helmet together. And one thing I came to realize after I had started putting this together was how much I needed to not glue some of these parts together. So the feathers actually flare out at the bottom and aren't attached. And I had put glue on more than I had really needed to, so I'd put it on more surface area than I needed to, so I actually had to be pretty careful not to allow the bottoms of the feather sections to touch and accidentally attach to each other. As per usual, I am using contact cement with this project, and you can't see it, but I am wearing a respirator off camera. If you're going to be using contact cement, please always make sure to use a fume respirator and work in a well-ventilated area. This stuff is toxic, and yeah, you can give yourself a pretty nasty headache and make yourself feel not great if you are not wearing a respirator. Yeah, I might know that because I've been irresponsible in the past, but if I'm going to be using contact cement in large amounts for long periods of time, I'm gonna wear a respirator. The respirator that I use is a 3M 6000 series, and I use the organic filter cartridges on that respirator. If you're wondering what kind of protection I use when using contact cement, you can't use a dust mask. It won't do anything against fumes. It's great against dust, but it won't help with organic vapors. So anytime you're using anything that gives off volatile vapors, you need an actual fume rated respirator. So this goes for contact cement if you're doing anything with PVC and a bunch of other things like resins and other things that give off noxious fumes. As you're gonna see, I actually had a pretty hard time getting this put together and to the shape that I wanted. Putting these 3-dimensional parts together the first time, I didn't angle cut the sides, and as a result, it didn't glue down the way that I wanted. I also put way too much glue on that first time. That was my cat jumping down out of a window, if you were wondering what that noise was. Anyway, I put way too much glue on and I didn't angle cut these, so it didn't lay down as well as I had hoped, which is why I'm also glad I got to do it a second time. I got a second go at it to correct the mistakes that I made the first time. And so being able to remake it helped me to learn how to better make this and make it look more of how I wanted it to look. The final step in putting together the eagle layer was putting these sides onto the top. This was a bit of a process to get everything into place and to get everything where I wanted, and then the final step is gluing the eagle layer onto the base. The 4mm foam on its own isn't very stable, so in order to make this a more sturdy, stable helmet, I do need that 6mm layer on the inside. So I glued that in. I glued the white layer, the 4mm layer, to the 6mm layer, made some adjustments to the 6mm layer where it kind of showed through a little bit, and at that point, that's when I tried it on and looked at it and decided it wasn't right. It didn't look right. The beak section was too long. It stuck out too far from my face. It didn't look the way that it looks in the reference photos that I have. So at that point, I decided to remake the pattern to make the beak shorter, and it's only shortened by about an inch. That's all I had to shorten it by, but that meant retooling the patterns quite a bit and then recutting those pieces. I was going to recut everything and then realized I can just tear the sides off and just retool the top. The sides are fine. And I remade the base because I ended up tearing it to pieces when I cut everything up. So I had to remake the base, remake the top, tear off the sides, and start putting it back together. Unlike the first version, I made sure to angle cut the top pieces that went together, that three-dimensional piece. I angle cut at a 45-degree angle the sides that were going to be put together. So like the top section and the side, there's an angle cut on the sides that are going to be put together. And with that angle cut present, it glued together so much better. It looked a lot better once I laid it down onto the helmet. And this was one of the lessons I learned from making the first version. Now that the pattern's been fixed and the new pieces cut out and putting it together, I'm going to go through the same process as the first version of the helmet. I'm going to glue everything together, place the sides in the top section, put the 6mm layer inside the 4mm layer, and that is the helmet built a second time. This was probably one of the most complex things I have patterned recently, and it definitely showed because it definitely took me 2 tries to get this right. Overall, once I made the second version, I was so much happier with it, and it looks better, it fits my head, it's proportioned better, and I'm pretty happy with it. Like I said in the first video where I made the patterns are available on my online store. So if you're interested in making this helmet for yourself, you don't have to go through the patterning shenanigans that I went through. You can take those patterns and use them for yourself. If you're going to be making this helmet yourself, I would suggest making a paper mock-up before using the patterns to make the foam version. I don't have the same head size as you do, so you may need to size up or size down the patterns as necessary. I will say that this is basically made for a head with a circumference of 22 inches. I don't know what that is in centimeters off the top of my head, but you can do a conversion. So if you're looking to make this for yourself, those patterns are available. Just make sure to note that these patterns are not one size fits all, and make sure to resize as you need. And with that is the build part of this helmet putting it together series. The next and final video is going to be how I finished this, how I primed and painted it, and got it looking like a real life golden eagle helmet. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in part 3, the last video in this helmet build series. Again, thank you, and I will see you in the next video.